Mike Cornelissen, Cornelissen Farms Inc., farm with my family. We're really into variable rate technology. My dad started with yield mapping in early 2000s. In 2013, I think it was, we started doing variable rate. We started with corn seed, and then we added variable rate drives to the rest of our equipment. Our next big focus was fertilizer with phosphorus and potassium, and now we variable rate everything from corn seed, soybean seed, nitrogen, and all of our fertility that goes on our land. So we first purchased the yield monitor to try to collect data. We always knew we were going to need that data at some point. It took a lot longer to use the data than we thought. So as soon as we kind of found a place to use that data, we started using it. Our main reasons were to get in variable rate technology was on the seed wise, it's better you use the seed in the better areas of the farm. And then on fertility wise, we found in all of our farms, average, they were good for fertility levels, but we always found areas low for fertility. So then we really wanted to focus on building the areas low fertility, cutting back in the areas of high fertility, and make sure we're maintaining the areas that are good fertility to optimize our yields and best utilize our land. We feel like our most important variable rate we do on our farm is our phosphorus and potassium application. So we apply this through a strip tiller. We have a 3-bin tank up front. It's a 12 metric ton fertilizer. Total capacity of the cart has 3 separate bins, all with its own variable rate drives on them. So we can variable rate 3 different products. So we put 3 different scripts in the tractor. Each tank gets its own script, so it's putting the fertility exactly where it is needed in the farm. Then it's blown through. It mixes all 3 in the single hose product, and we band it between 4 and 6 inches in the soil. We can do anywhere from 500 pounds an acre down to 0 pounds an acre of total product, depending on what the soil needs. We try to build the soils that are low, maintain the soils that are good, and deplete the soils that are extremely high. And then our strip tiller has a row cleaner, just a single coulter. We went to a shank style strip tiller. We got some blowout preventer so dirt doesn't leave the strip, which is very important strip till, that all the dirt stays in the strip or you'll have holes in it. We got some hillers and we roll in basket. And on our operation, we try to do all of our strip tilling in the fall. The most interesting thing we learned was when we finally did grid sampling or smart grid sampling, soil sampling our farms. We are 5 acre smart grid, let's call it. On the farm average, or if anything, the levels of fertility are high, but we look at as a farm base, but 25% of our land is, the levels are, let's say, call them extremely low. And when you take in account of that, the yield loss you're getting, even if you do a high rate of starter fertilizer, you're still getting significant yield loss. So that was one of the biggest things that jumped out to us, and the main reason why at that time we didn't have the variable rate drives on our dry fertilizer equipment. So that was a big jump to, let's put that on our dry fertilizer equipment to try get our fertility exactly where we need it, especially in those areas super low. I think there's some big yield potential in those areas, so that's why we focused on definitely the dry fertilizer on our operation. And the other one was with the company we work with, they analyze our fields and see what the potential is if we put the seed in the right spots, increase it or decrease it depending on the crop of those high yielding areas or in low area yielding zones. What's the potential yield or return on investment you could get? And some farms have quite a huge opportunity in the variable rate seed area, and some farms have very little. It's going to be hard to always get that farm perfect, but it gives you a good idea of what the potential of that farm is. And some farms, like I said, have huge potential, and those are the farms I think we really got to focus on, trying to keep really focusing on the zones, getting them correct to get that big potential. And the other farms that are not as big a potential, we'll focus on them later, but it's not as quite as a big investment return on those farms. So my dad on his 9500 put an egg leader yield monitor on it, was one of the first ones at the time. We collected yield data for many years. Didn't quite know what we were going to do with it, but we knew the data would be important someday. So when we did get into variable rate, seed, fertilizer, and all the other things, at least we had 14, 15 years of data already, so we could start right into it. I find a lot of operations that do want to get in variable rate, they do not have that yield data to help make the scripts, and it takes them longer to see the true benefits, yield benefits and economic benefits when they don't have the yield data to really fine tune those scripts right from the beginning. The three main things I would start with is first get a yield monitor, collect that yield data. Even if you don't think you're going to do it right away, it's always good to have the data. Make sure it just helps the whole process of making script maps for seed especially. The second one is put variable drives on everything. Especially if you're buying new, it doesn't cost much more to put the variable rate drives on from factory. And slowly pluck away at the equipment you think you're going to keep long term. But especially if you're buying a new piece of equipment, buy a variable rate drive on it right away. Even if you don't think you're going to use it for a couple years, it's way cheaper doing it from factory than switching it over. And the third one, I would focus on your phosphorus and potassium if you're going to start with variable rating something. In my opinion, and looking at our farm operation, we think that the biggest potential is getting that fertility in the right spots. Those spots of farm that are super high, you're not getting a yield benefit to it. It's not helping anything having super high. And those spots that are super low, you're losing a lot of potential yield there. So at least getting them to a good moderate soil sample, I think, is very important. And especially with higher yielding areas, draw a lot more fertility from the soil. You can also take your crop removal for your fertility and put that into your maps. So you can take your yield maps, put that with your fertilizer maps with your soil sampling, so those high crop removal areas of your farm, you can put down more fertilizer to make sure you have it there for your next time you have those higher yielding areas of your field. Another thing I would like to, for people starting out in variable rate technology and precision farming, is focus on fertilizer first when you go to variable rate. I think that's for us, and I think for most farms, that's the most important area you can focus on variable rating. You always have areas in your farm that are extremely low on fertilizer. Like we have areas on our farm that are 25% of our land base that are extremely low. We know there's yield loss to it. And there's also areas super high. So adding fertilizer doesn't give you any yield increase. And with crop removal, like when you have high yielding areas with crop removal, you know you're going to be drawing more nutrients from that area. So you can take both your soil sample maps and your yield maps from the crops and build them together to put your fertility on your soil, and helps to fix those low areas, draw back on those high fertility areas, and keep pushing those high yielding zones to max out the potential of your farm. If I was talking to someone who is highly involved already with precision ag, and especially with the variable rate, I think that something I would ask them is, how are you improving your zones? It's one thing to have zones, it's the next thing to know if your zone is the proper population or amount of fertilizer in your zone, and also making sure your zone's in the right spot. Sometimes zones get messed up a little bit, and you need a little bit of adjustments both in the amount of fertilizer or seed you're putting down, and the area, or how big it is or small it is. So I think the big thing is make sure you have a system in place to test your zones out every year so you can keep learning. It's another form of data into your data bank to make sure that you're doing things right. So we never had any major failures from early adopting, to say, with the variable rate technology or even precision ag in general. Some stuff took longer to use than what we thought. For example, the yield monitor, we had it for many years. We had all this data. We never used it for anything. We thought we'd use it a lot quicker than what we did. We did finally use it, just took a little bit longer than what we thought it would take. And same as a corn planter and bean planter, we had a variable rate drive on it for the seed. We didn't use it right away, but we did finally use it. Just took a few years before we got into it. I guess we weren't early adopters expecting to use the stuff, but we knew someday we'd want the stuff, so we wanted to make sure we had it for when the time came, because when you're buying new equipment, it doesn't cost that much to have it on there. The next steps for variable rating, I guess this year we tried 3 new products. One is nitrogen on corn, one is starter fertilizer on wheat, and the other one is variable rating wheat seed. So we don't know if they work yet. This is our first year trying them, so we need the data back to see what's going to happen. From here, I think the big things is just fine-tuning that data, finding ways to improve it. I guess it's more actually analyzing the data, again, better at doing that to improve what we're doing. We have the equipment to do it now, we just got to make sure the equipment is doing the proper job of applying the products. In terms of equipment and technology we use, our planters are John Deere. We have factory John Deere variable rate drives on them. Nitrogen, one planter has nitrogen applied with the planter, so it has a variable rate John Deere kit with it, Green Star rate controller on it. Side dresser from factory has a variable rate drive on it. We also added the John Deere rate controller to it. We have a John Deere 1910 fertilizer cart, 3 bin, 430 bushels. Again, that's factory installed variable rate drives. We use a Terraforge strip tiller. Another supporter of ours is Veritas Farm Management. They're the ones that help us put together the farm scripts for all of our different products. We also use them to do the soil sampling, take the data, put all the data together. They're a very key role, I think more than anything else, is analyzing the data from the different applications we do to see how we further improve them, to see where we could go in the future. They also help us to bounce ideas together and try different things to help improve our farm.